scandal hits mainstream. So it seems that USAID has been funding all sorts of news organizations, from Politico to little bloggers, etc. And it's happening in Canada too. And I've got links to show you that as well, the comparisons and direct, like Canada's funding this amount, where the United States is funding this amount, to political websites like Politico. And I've got Politico's the actual example. So it is absolutely wild. Trump's upset about it. Reuters was paid by USAID for, quote, large-scale social deception. So isn't that wild? And how did this whole thing start, right? Obama. But it's very interesting how everything's played out and where we are now. So we'll look at all that. Canada Post layoffs and firings. They're firing a bunch of managers in the Ottawa area and across the country, restructuring after the $1 billion loan at Christmas to keep them solvent after their whole strike left the Canada Post bankrupt and unable to do their jobs, I guess. I don't know. Highest number of bankruptcies in 15 years. So that's going back to 2010. That's quite a lot. And most hollow nationalism campaign ever. Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau are saying, we're all Team Canada. We all support each other. We've got each other's backs and blah, 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 blah. And it's such bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. I don't buy it. I don't believe them. It is all the years that these two have been in charge. They've hated Canada. They've hated nationalism. They've hated everything about Canada except for the fact that it's big and the houses can be lived in by foreigners. That's all they like about Canada, it seems. And now all of a sudden they love Canada, buy Canada first, all sorts of other stuff. Give me a break, right? Like, I don't believe it. And it's insulting to our intelligence to think that these people who have hated Canada so thoroughly for so many years are suddenly Canada's biggest fans, right? They like the fact that they can fly around on jets that are paid for by our tax dollars, that they can utilize our tax dollars to live a decadent lifestyle. That's all they like about Canada. So I don't believe their nationalist campaign. I don't believe their nonsense. And indeed, it's interesting because Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau, have openly funded the press, where USAID has had to covertly fund the press in the United States. And that was done, I think, to make it look like it's grassroots, right? Like it's all by themselves that they've come to this conclusion. And that's not true. But in Canada, they did it really openly, and Canadians believed it. So, and kind of ignored the fact that the media was the government was the media's biggest customer. The government was paying the media for stories, and truth and honesty weren't part of that equation whatsoever. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we're starting with fake news, right? So Insurrection Barbie says, according to the Columbia Journalism Review, USAID supported 6,200 journalists, 707 news outlets, 279 media sector civil society organizations in 30 different countries. Do you think Canada's one of those countries? Mm-hmm. No wonder the news all sounds the same. It's on purpose, and you can't do that without covering your bases. It's like if you're in the mob, before you really start your operation, you go buy off the police, right? Otherwise, the police might be knocking on your door. You got to cover off your bases, right? Like, jeepers creepers. Nikki says the ripple effect of USAID will be felt by organizations worldwide for decades to come. That's if they survive. So great. So here is the press secretary outlining what's going on with USAID. Here we go.
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than $8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOJ team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort. So
There you go. So that's, pretty interesting. $8 million in subscriptions. How much is a Politico subscription? That's a lot of subscriptions, right? Like if it's $10 a month or whatever it is, $8 million for the federal government. How many subscriptions do you need for the federal government to be covered for, necessary, I need this for my work type deal? I don't think so. And the USAID is covert, so it's not meant to be open books. You know what I mean? Nobody's supposed to know that $8 million is being backdoored to Politico. And in Canada, it's open though. And M. Brandt is responding to Anne, and she says, classic, I wonder how many subscriptions Canada has to Politico, and Canada has $89,668.48. That's interesting. And so that was the June 14th, 2024 contract date. So will it be re-up this year? Yes, because we don't have a Department of Government Efficiency, and they're going to definitely, absolutely spend that money. So work description, printed matter, including books, newspapers, pictures, manuscripts, and forms. And so Global Affairs Canada is paying for that, it seems. And there you go. We are absolutely doing that. And applied, this person says, it says something profound about the difference between Canada and the United States, that the US government was paying friendly media inflated amounts for numerous subscriptions, while Canada's government was sharing one username and password for an honest news site among numerous users. And Holly Doan, who was the victim of that, and the court said, yeah, that's fine. Says, Government of Canada also pays inflated amounts for friendly media. Privy Council subscribes to Politico, though their contract is modest by Toronto Star standards. So that's the 89,000 that we just looked at. Interesting, right? It's very, very interesting. Liz Churchill's highlighting this. This is from Alex Jones Network, or is it still InfoWars? I don't know. I thought he rebranded after Tucker Carlson. Here is Alex Jones highlighting the US aid spending, and this is to Reuters, and he gets a kick out of this. This is him reading it for the first time. So somebody has given him a stack of papers. All the papers are laid out on his desk, and he's got like an over-the-shoulder cam. It's something used for presentations to look at sheets on flat desks and then put it up on. It's the modernization of what are those things called? The carbon things where we used to sing Christmas carols, and they don't do that anymore. It's the modernization of that. Anyway. Regardless, it's the first time he's reading this. So other people have prepared this for him. He hasn't read this yet. He's been told to go through it, and he's encountering this for the first time. Let's watch.
Here's Special Services, that's MI6. You can look it up. Active social engineering, defense, large-scale social deception. Zoom in on that. Look at that. Just look. Of course, they want to keep it secret that the Pentagon's paying Reuters to, what's the exact term? I might just read this for the next 4 hours over and over again. Active social engineering defense, ASED, and large-scale social deception, LSD. Boy, that sounds like what good people do.
Wouldn't that be LSSD, large-scale social deception? LSD is large-scale deception. That misses the... Anyway, Brianna says, President Donald Trump isn't happy that the fake news was being paid off by the USAID. President refers to Politico as a left-wing rag. Yeah, it definitely is. Donald Trump says, looks like billions of dollars have been stolen at USAID and other agencies, much of it going to the fake news media as a payoff for creating good stories about the Democrats. Left-wing rag known as Politico seems to have received $8 million. Did the New York Times receive money? Who else did? This could be the biggest scandal of them all, perhaps the biggest in history. Democrats can't hide from this one. Too big, too dirty. So I think there's bigger coming. I know there's bigger coming. This is a small fish. Wait till Kash Patel gets confirmed. Wait till this thing starts firing on all cylinders. We're just getting warmed up, I think. Here's the other thing. Trump said CBS and 60 Minutes defrauded the public by doing something. Oh, this is the other thing that was released yesterday. They had to release the transcripts of Kamala Harris's interview, and it was a train wreck. It was even worse than what people speculated. And so that's what Trump's responding to here. Doing something which has never to this extent been seen before. They 100% removed Kamala's horrible election-changing answers to questions and replaced them with completely different and far better answers taken from another part of the interview. This was election-changing stuff. election interference, and quite simply, election fraud at a level never seen before. CBS should lose its license, and the cheaters at 60 Minutes should all be thrown out, and this disreputable news show should be immediately terminated. With the new Democrat scandal that just arose with respect to USAID illegally paying large sums of money to Politico and other media outlets, the question must be asked, was CBS paid for committing this fraud? Many other questions to come. This will go down as the biggest broadcasting scandal in history. Interesting. It's very, very interesting. In Canada, and I just want to underline this, Chris says, meanwhile in Canada, Trudeau's been openly funding all major media sources to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars over and over while banning independent media from attending political events, press conferences, and announcements for years. That's what's happening in Canada. And it was happening in the United States too, until Donald Trump exposed it. And now he's going to dismantle it. It seems like that's what that says. Hey guys, you should fire all those people and cancel that news program that lied to you about a presidential candidate, because that's below the standards of America, right? And that's the president of the United States taking aim at CBS, 60 Minutes, and all of these people. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Okay. If you're one of those people, you're trying to find a rock to hide under right now. That's a big deal. Okay. And they've contributed to the destruction of their industry. And Trump is currently standing in front of the barn that's burning down saying, told you, right? And Canada, we knew about all of this. We know about all of this, and we don't do anything about it. In fact, people ignore it and forget about it. And it's not even part of the conversation when we get told things like, no symptom is a symptom of illness. Sure it is. Dr. Jacobs says, in the US, they call this a scandal. In Canada, we just call it the CBC. Chris says, USAID funding corporate media is the biggest scandal of 2025. Oh, Canada says, hold my beer. In essence, the Biden administration was paying the media through USAID to attack the likes of Rumble and X, advocate for censorship, and install their own government in the USA by attacking the opposition party. Does it sound familiar at all? Right? Are we going to demand a change at all, or nah? And unfortunately, we don't have a good track record of demanding change. Trump is leading the way and fixing, and people are jumping on the Trump train. He's doing it, and they're jumping on the Trump train. Nobody in Canada is doing it. Okay, that's the difference. We don't have a vehicle to join. Nobody's strong enough. Nobody's doing it. That's that. Sorry, that's just that. Nobody's joining whatever vehicles are out there right now for whatever reason. Although I saw Bernier yesterday and he had 1,000 viewers on a live stream with payment. So good for them. I'm glad. I hope so. Maybe this will thaw things and maybe people will be able to actually choose in the next election. But again, our elections are rigged, okay? Mail-in ballots. BC, did you see BC? It's the same thing. And it's not just Dominion. There's a whole cadre of things that rig our elections. The Toronto Bell Media and Rogers refused to run Faith Goldie's ads in Toronto. That's illegal in Canada, yet they got away with it for claiming that, if we run those ads, it's going to damage our reputation, right? It's illegal to do that. And the judge was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good argument. No problems, right? Over and over again. PPC is removed from polls. PPC has been excused or excluded from the debates on bullshit reasons. They've changed the rules. The rules before had PPC qualifying. Now they changed the rules. PPC doesn't qualify. All of this stuff is election rigging. All of it. Okay? And together, it changes the outcome of the election. Got it? And it's openly done. Nobody cares. In fact, they fight with me and say, no, it's not, Mark. We hand count the ballots. Oh, we hand count the ballots. We have non-fungible elastic ability to change the number of votes as we find out what's needed. That's what is happening, okay? There's a whole write-up on my website by Jason, and multiple times I've referred to it. This stuff is open and closed, so if you want to see it, you can see it, but there are things that are, trade secrets that math guys and other people have sussed out. But again, nobody is actioning anything to fix it. Our elections are rigged. And so. M. Brandt again says, strengthening institutional capacities and performance to integrate a gender-sensitive approach to watershed planning. $13 million. $13 million. That's a March 6, 2024 USAID for Agency for International Development. And it says the project aims to strengthen sectors towards shared objectives, strengthening institutional capacities and performance to integrate a gender-sensitive approach to watershed planning, promoting evidence-based decision-making and tools for integrated water resource management and climate change adaptation. They're doing everything they can to get this language everywhere because they're trying. It's a communist thing. Here's how CIA, I think this is CIA, maybe it's not CIA. This guy was being trained in something. Well, I'll let them explain because it's a pretty wild story.
Mark Moyer, he's a USAID whistleblower, and he joins me now. So, Mark, you started at USAID, and what'd they do the first thing? Did they send you to DEI camp?
Yes, and great to be with you, Jesse. So I didn't get into the agency till February 2018, and this is one of the big differences that we're already seeing that in 2017, Trump administration was very slow to get into the agency. So I get there in February, and we have what's called a privilege walk as part of the orientation, where you are given an identity. Now, I was a Scandinavian woman, and so when they read lines like, I get discriminated against because of government services, or people don't look how I look. So you took a step forward if it applied, and if it didn't. And so I ended up near the front, and the indigenous woman with unwanted pregnancy and the male prostitute were at the other end, and then we talked about our privileges.
All right, so you were trained to be a Scandinavian woman in a privilege walk, not root out corruption. What kind of disguises do they use to fund these projects? I mean, do they just change the names of these things? Is there really some other reason we're doing this?
Yeah, they're very effective at rebranding things. So in the first Trump administration, the priorities were support national interests, as they are now. Another thing was countering terrorism and promoting self-reliance. So I went to a country, just to give one example, they had a feminist women's book club that had been started under the Obama administration, and then they now said this is a counter-terror program because feminist women are key fighters in the battle against terrorism.
Oh, yes.
All of that rebranding stuff, I think, also applies in Canada. If you get close to something, they change the name of it so you are no longer close to whatever it was. And they will gaslight you into pretending that your suspicion was unfounded, nothing untoward was ever happening, and please go away now, right? So it's very interesting to see all of this come to light. And I think, as I said, Trump's just getting started. This is just the beginning. BRICS is reporting Hungary Prime Minister Viktor Orban issues a statement on USAID corruption. I think the world owes a debt of gratitude to President Trump for uncovering and putting an end to this dark conspiracy. Yeah, it's pretty wild what's going on, what's being exposed. And, well, we'll see what else gets exposed. Here's just some quick USA news. Here's leading report, and they say Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is pushing a Second Amendment summer, which would mean no sales tax on guns and ammunition from Memorial Day through to Independence Day. Woo! USA. So that's kind of fun. Here's Donald Trump talking about being shot and having God save him to make America great again. So, to me, people's motivation matters. What people think of themselves matters. I often say that you're not Darth Vader in your own story, even if you do bad things. You can justify it in a whole bunch of different ways, so on and so forth. There's all sorts of things you can tell yourself. If you're doing bad things, you're never the bad guys, is my point. But what kind of president would you get if he genuinely believed what Donald Trump is saying here? I don't think that you're going to get somebody. This implies Donald Trump is genuinely trying to make America great again, in my opinion. Does that make sense? Here's Donald Trump talking about dodging an assassin's bullet to become the 47th president of the United States. Here we go.
And I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. And I've
just going to motivation, personal motivation. If you think that, how would you act? Right? And I think you act with purpose. I think you act decisively. I think there are things that you think maybe I'm unsure about that. And if something like that happens, you say, oh, well, I'm sure. Right? And I mean, I don't know. I haven't dodged an assassin's bullet or anything like that, and I don't want to. But I'm just saying, having that thought in your head is an interesting motivator for the leader of the free world, right? Especially one like Donald Trump, who's so polarizing. There are people who like him, people who hate him, people who trust him, people who really don't trust him, people who see things that I think the media has planted, maybe accurately, maybe not. I don't know. Things I don't see, and I see things in Trump that other people don't see, right? So I mean, it's interesting. I don't know what to make of it. I hope he's on the side of sanity. I hope he's on the side of humanity. That's what I hope. We'll find out, right? He's moving fast. So proof is in the pudding. And so far, it looks good. The Israel thing. But I've got a little bit more color on that today, and it looks like maybe it's not what we thought in the first place. So we'll see. Anyway, here's Trump on protecting women and removing men from women's sports. Here we go.
You want to do this? Watch what I do, and then I'm going to give you some pens, okay? You ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that. I want to make this a really good signature because this is a big one, right? Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
Pretty good, huh? I see that. Okay? Good. Now you're going to go out and win those events, right? Nice to see you all. Great going, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you, kids. Here, take a pen.
Thank you.
I'll give some of these out, okay? Take a pen, take a pen.
So it's tradition, like when you sign a bill, you have people who are stakeholders in the bill, and they all get a pen from the signing, right? And that's a keepsake. It's valuable, et cetera, et cetera. So that's cool. He's protecting women's sports, right? Jack says promises made, promises kept. Also, I find it interesting that they're not trying to virtue signal with the people who are surrounding President Trump, right? That's interesting to me. President Biden would try and virtue signal. President Trump is not. I think he's just genuinely inviting athletes, and whoever comes, right? Like there's all sorts of people, and I think that it looks genuine where other things look very staged. Okay. Julie says, in Mexico and India, only Mexican and Indian nationals can hold government positions, but not in Canada. Oh, nuts. Rob says, Attorney Generals Pam Bondi, USA, born in the USA. Arif Farini, Canada, born in Uganda. It's a huge difference between the two. Pam believes in law and order. Arif believes in censorship and no accountability. Canada needs law and order. Yeah, well, I agree with that. Secretary Rubio says, I will not attend the G20 summit in Johannesburg. South Africa is doing very bad things, expropriating private property, using G20 to promote solidarity, equality, and sustainability. In other words, DEI and climate change. My job is to advance America's national interests, not waste taxpayer money or coddle anti-Americanism. So they're rebranding sustainability and development, or what's it called? DEI and climate change, to solidarity, equality, and sustainability. So it's a constantly changing definition. And so you don't even know you're there until in the middle of it, you realize you've heard this sermon before. It's just the same thing rehashed. And so I'm glad that Rubio's calling it out. It's interesting that they're not going, and what kind of impact is that going to have, right? And they're removing themselves from the WHO. They're removing themselves. Italy's removing themselves from the WHO. All sorts of countries are responding to Trump's shifts, and that's interesting. It's interesting to watch because it's not just the United States moving. Let's talk about tariffs. Arlene says, today the PMO announced a Canada-US economic summit will take place on Friday, February 7th in Toronto, Ontario. The PMO says the reason to hold the summit, even though the House of Commons has been prorogued since December 17th, 24, is to galvanize business and investment across Canada to break down interprovincial barriers and diversify global trade. Breaking down interprovincial barriers is a political term that it doesn't actually have any translation into action. It's something that they want to say, but they're not actually going to do anything about. Okay. And they might do some small things like change the laws about importing liquor from Quebec or something to that effect. They might do some things like that. But even then, like, I don't even think they want to do that. Quebec doesn't want to do that. Ontario doesn't want to do that. It'll change. The LCBO will have to be competitive with Quebec because businesses will start going to the Quebec SAC. And anyway, there's a whole bunch of differences there. They don't want to do that. But the biggest thing that you can do is build a pipeline east-west, right? The biggest thing you could do is get Canadian Alberta oil and other oil, LNG products to Tidewater as fast as possible. And that's through Quebec. And Quebec doesn't want that. And so, and it's bullshit, right? But they're not talking about breaking down interprovincial trade barriers. They're talking about minor changes on the corners of the whole policy. They don't want to do anything that's actually going to change anything. They want to convince you that they're talking about things that are actually going to change things, but it's bullshit and it's not going to happen. And so, like, I hope I'm wrong, but the only thing that they need to do is Energy East, and they're not going to damn well do it. So, unless they're made to do it. And diversify global trade. It's bullshit. Bullshit. Diversify global trade. The only thing that matters is oil and gas. Everything else, oh, okay, we're going to increase our wheat sales. Okay, sure. Hope the trains don't get blockaded. Give me a break, right? The summit will be co-hosted by Prime Minister Trudeau with the members of the Council on Canada, U.S. Relations. The members of the council are touted as being experts in their sectors. I was curious, who are these experts and what are their areas of expertise? I did a little research, and here's a brief breakdown of who is on the council and what backgrounds, connections, and histories reveal. You can be the judge of how diverse and interested they might be in strengthening Canada's interprovincial ties. Funny, I didn't find anyone here that represents Canada's oil and gas sector. Interesting, right? I'm not surprised. It's Jean Charest, Rachel Notley, Stephen McNeil, David McNaughton, Steve V. I can't say his last name. Sorry about that. Arlene Dickinson, Linda Hassenfratz from Guelph, Lana Payne, Jody Thomas, Flavio Volpe, Tabitha Bull, and Sharnandez Rafiti, Hassan Youssef, Wes Hall, Brian Topp, Tim Geitzel, and Kristen Hillman, Peter Tzaikin, I'm getting that wrong, and who else? And that's it. There's a write-up on each of them, but it's kind of beyond the podcast today to go through it, and it'll be a little long, and so I'm not going to go through it. But you should. And you should check it out. And they're all liberal insiders. They've all been kind of kowtowing to the altar of woke for the last few years. Most of them, anyway. Most of them have questionable choices. Like Linda Hassenfratz was on the COVID panel thing, and then she left because she left the country during lockdowns and things like that. So everybody on the panel has. It's one of those things where I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's interestinger. That's even more interesting. Anyway, here's the food professor to underline the point about the East-West pipeline. Food professor says, Anand suggests Canada's interprovincial barriers could crumble within a month. No, they won't. They won't solve this. And supply management. Oh, supply management's the other one. Yeah. Food professor says, my home in Nova Scotia is heated with Saudi oil. Since I can't get oil from Alberta, a province that sends Nova Scotia $2 billion in equalization payments because we're considered a poor province, you can't make this up. He says, you can't make this up. Barriers hurt our economy every day. And like, he's not wrong, right? That's the problem. The problem with what's going on with regards to Canada and misstepping with regards to being able to sell its product isn't with any other product other than oil. Maybe there's a couple of products here and there that we're missing the opportunities on, but the one that's going to make the biggest difference is the one that, like everybody's already said, oh yeah, well, we're not going to do that. It's like, okay, in order to lose weight, The first thing you need to do is stop eating as much. Second thing you need to do is maybe increase your physical activity, blah, 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 to make things faster, right? Most people stop eating as much. Whoa, hold on. I'll just go to the gym more. Now we got a soup. And it doesn't work. Doesn't work. So ignoring this is like ignoring your diet if you're trying to lose weight. It's the most important thing. Forget about that part. So are you going to diversify your products and be able to sell to a whole bunch of people and your economy, make your economy resilient to U.S. tariffs? No, absolutely not. No, we're not. That's not what we're going to do. Absolutely not. And so we're stuck. And so what do we do about that? Because we should at least acknowledge it, because the powers that be, they're not interested in actually fixing any of the problems at all. Harmon says, Dave Eby knew and did nothing. So this is going to the tariffs again. Drugs, right? This is the drug part. Dave Eby knew a leaked presentation has confirmed what British Columbians feared. The NDP's Safe Supply program flooded our streets with 20,000 opioid pills and fentanyl patches between 2022 and 24. That's over 27,000 doses every single day, fueling organized crime and worsening the deadly addiction crisis. Even worse, the document reveals that pharmacy incentives were being offered to doctors, housing, and medical professionals. They were being incentivized to push these dangerous drugs, and Eby let it happen. While the NDP were busy trying to ban alcohol, their reckless policies were destroying lives. How many families have suffered? How many children have been lost? British Columbians deserve answers. They deserve accountability. Fire Bonnie Henry immediately and investigate this corruption. Yeah, I mean, I think it's necessary, but are we going to do it? No. Here is an MP trying to find out how many people are involved in the fentanyl trade, and they don't know how many people, but they can tell you how many criminal organizations, and they're floored. It's 4,000. They can't believe their ears. Here we go.
How many to the RCMP? How many people do you estimate are involved in the production and distribution of fentanyl in Canada? Do you have like a ballpark estimate? Is it 1,000 people? Is it 10,000 people?
I don't have a ballpark figure on it.
So you have no idea how many people could possibly be involved in the fentanyl trade in Canada?
There's a significant group, a significant number of organized crime group, but if you're asking me for a specific number, I can't give you a specific number.
How many organized crime groups are involved?
Over 4,000 organized crime groups in Canada, as assessed by the Criminal Intelligence Service Canada.
4,000 individual organized crime groups, all with their own distinct leadership and membership?
That's correct.
How many...
That sounds high, right? 4,000 for fentanyl? Here's YEG Wave, and he says one man... Oh, hold on. I think there's one more fentanyl story. No, there's not. So drugs are a problem. And are they going to get better? We're not on the path for that yet. Here's YEG Wave. He says one man is dead and 15 individuals have been taken into custody following 3 separate incidents at the Canada-U.S. border, the RCMP confirmed. On Tuesday, a man crossing at the Coots border in southern Alberta died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound after fleeing from authorities. He had been directed to a secondary inspection at 7:45 a.m. but drove into Canada without stopping. Police located the vehicle near Raymond, Alberta, and pursued it to Lethbridge and back. The chase ended near Milk River after officers deployed a tire deflation device. The man fled on foot and was pronounced dead at the scene. The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team, ACERT, is investigating. The day before, 4 adults and 5 children crossed the border near Coots on foot while carrying suitcases. None were dressed for the severe winter weather, with temperatures between -20 and -30. The group was arrested under the Customs Act and transferred to the Canadian Border Services Agency for processing. Earlier, what does processing mean? Were they sent back? Because they should be sent back. Earlier on January 14th, near Emerson, Manitoba, 6 individuals crossed the border on foot, about 15 kilometers east of the crossing. U.S. authorities alerted Canadian officers, prompting the RCMP and aerial unit to respond. The group was found in a nearby woods and arrested without incident before being handed over to CBSA, Canada Border Service Agency. RCMP Assistant Commissioner Lisa Moreland emphasized the dangers of illegal crossings in extreme weather, urging individuals to avoid such attempts for their safety. Send them back. Send them back or put them on a plane to a warmer country that they probably came from, because they don't belong here. Bradshaw says Jagmeet Singh on TT, I don't know what TT is, telling Canadians to boycott America. He wants you to sign a statement that you will only buy Canadian, yet Jagmeet Singh sold himself out to the World Economic Forum. Yeah, well, that's true. Here's some of this. Jagmeet Singh. This is the most empty, hollow nationalistic campaign I've ever seen. Here we go.
Friends, if you are worried and you are saying, what can I do to fight back against Trump's tariffs? You're worried about it. You're fed up about it. Here's what you can do. I'm here with Craig Sauvé. We're in Montreal. You can buy Canadian and boycott American. Come with me. Let me show you how you do that. So you pick up a product right here. Boom. Let's pick up this chocolate. Chocolate Boreal. Boy, I dropped another one. I have to buy that too. Chocolate Boreal, made in Canada, made in Quebec. That's good. Buy that.
Why sowing division like this? It's not very nationalistic, and it seems empty. Here's Justin Trudeau. I know Justin Trudeau warning for 15 seconds or so. Here we go.
Friends looking to buy Canadian goods, looking to find Canadian suppliers, looking to be there to support communities right across the country through these challenging times. That is the very best of Canada. We pull together when we're faced with challenges, and that's what we've seen from coast to coast to coast.
This is only a couple of days ago. At the beginning of this speech, he talks about avoiding Trump's tariffs. So he's out of touch and thinks he's still in charge of the Liberal Party. It's something else to see. Rachel Caroline Plaza says, hey, Canadians stick together, right? Except a couple of years ago when 60% of you cheered on lockdowns and tattled on neighbors for having too many visitors, which bankrupted your small mom and pop shops. Hey, remember that time when those of us who saw the damage being done to our neighbors stood up and convoyed to Ottawa to protest on behalf of all Canadians, and local pizza joint in Ottawa was shut down and charged because he dared to serve people food and not go bankrupt? Yeah, buy Canadian, my ass. You're all hypocrites. It's hollow because they're damn liars. That's why. This is what they like. Maxime Bernier says, these woke bureaucrats wasting Canadian taxpayer money should all be fired. Absolutely, 100%. This is an example of our money just being wasted on woke nonsense. Here we go.
As for Canada, it has been implementing a feminist foreign policy since 2016. Canada's feminist foreign policy seeks to be inclusive, intersectional, transformative, and grounded in human rights. It takes into account the diverse experiences of women, men, and non-binary people, facing multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination and exclusion.
I just wanted to give you a taste. She continues speaking, and it's all just buzzwords pushed together. Here, I'm just randomly selecting a timestamp. Listen to they're all just buzzwords pushed together, and they're designed to sound complicated and smart, but they're all just bullshit.
Understand and address the root causes of discrimination and barriers to inclusion affecting people with intersecting identities.
So let's go over here.
Engagement strategy. In implementing its feminist international assistance policy, Canada has prioritized the investments, partnerships, and advocacy efforts that have the greatest potential to close gender gaps.
It's nonsense. Absolute. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.